أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace and blessings be upon all of our respected viewers. Welcome once again to Ahlul Bayt TV, and this program is called The Ark of Salvation, a set of episodes during the holy month of Muharram discussing personal, or sorry, not personal, but social issues that of course are very important to us all. Today, inshallah, with our guest, our honored guest, Sayed Mustafa Qazwini, we are going to discuss certain guidelines for raising our children, inshallah. So, of course, it's something that is very important to all of us, even if you haven't as yet had your children. I'm sure you will do in the future, inshallah. Let's start by, of course, welcoming our esteemed guest to the studio, Sayed Mustafa Qazwini. Nice to have you with us once again. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you very much. Now, this may be a bit of a pessimistic outlook, if you like, but hopefully you can raise our hopes. Are we losing the battle? We're living here in the West. We're trying to make sure our children have a bit of deen and dunya, that they become materially wealthy, but also spiritually healthy as well. Yet the distractions at their disposal are becoming more and more the older they get, and as times move on, with access to the internet being made a lot easier. We see children at the age of 8, 9 having phones. Are we just trying to protect them from all of the things that they've been exposed to, and are we losing the battle?
But still, to raise a safe child is not something simple or easy. It's a big challenge, and it takes the full and sincere effort of both parents to work very, very, very hard to safeguard, protect their children, and there are many ways of doing that, of course, his or her life. If we live up to our responsibilities, if we do good, if we are caring and responsible, and we go after our children, and we do our best to protect them, we would never get lost here. We would never lose the hope here or lose the battle, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promises us that if you do your share, I will do my share. Leave the rest for me. But if we don't do enough, either we don't have the time, or we are too lazy, or we don't know how to approach this, then in that case we might lose the battle. So it depends. It depends on our effort. Our effort will make the difference. I know this is the concern of almost every Muslim family living in the West. Their main concern is how to protect our children. And this concern is not new or contemporary. This concern is ancient. When we listen to Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, he was asking God 4,000 years ago, وَجَنِّبْنِي وَبَنِيَّ أَن نَعْبُدَ الْأَصْنَامِ. Please avoid me and my children. Do not allow us to sway towards idol worshipping. So he asked for God's protection for himself and his children, because even 4,000 years ago there were other challenges. Now challenges are different, but still to raise a safe child is not something simple or easy. It's a big challenge, and it takes the full and sincere effort of both parents to work very, very, very hard to safeguard, protect their children, and there are many ways of doing that, of course.
Inshallah, which I'm sure we'll get an opportunity to speak a little bit about. I suppose the option of, I'm not going to stay here, I'm going to go back to a nice Muslim country where it's very religious and stay there, I guess that's becoming less and less of an option. Of course, there are still religious areas in Muslim countries that we can go to and live, but the temptations are still there as well. So maybe that's not necessarily an option.
Sometimes this is a valid argument. It depends, of course, on where you live, because when we speak about the West made of several continents, and they are not equal. The challenges sometimes in certain areas are more than other areas. For instance, if you compare, let me give you an example. If you compare London in England to Las Vegas or Los Angeles or another American city, you will see there is a big difference, you know. So it depends on where you live, because one of the ways of protecting your children is to find them the right environment. Three things nowadays, they really affect them and influence them and shape their identity and their thoughts and their personalities. One is the school. You have to find the right school for your children, because they spend something like 8 hours a day, in some cases more than that, in the school, in that environment. And it does touch their hearts, their souls, and their minds, and it influences them a great deal. So you have to find the right school for them. This is number one. Number two, TV at home. TV and these, you know, the video games that we have, also they shape their character. You know, they get influenced by it. So again, we have to be very careful about that, and we have to put a limit on that. You know, I see some parents, they send their kids to good Islamic schools with good education, good teachers, good curriculum, but when they come home, they corrupt everything they learned at school same day when they play with these video games. Some of them, they teach them violence. They teach them to be very aggressive, you know. So, and also watching TV. Not all the programs on TV are very, very good and safe. So this is the second element. The third element that influences our children are the friends. Who do they mingle with? Because tell me who is your friend, I would tell who you are. So the friend has a big impact on our character. Sometimes the hadith says, فَإِنَّ طَبْعَكَ يَسْرِقُ مِنْ طَبْعِهِ وَأَنْتَ لَا تَعْلَمُ. Your nature and your character is going to steal from his character, the character of the friend, and you don't even notice that. You don't notice. You're going to be influenced by him or by her, things that he says, he does, he thinks. You take it, even though if you are denying, you say, no, he's not going to change me, don't worry. You tell your parents, no, I know you, but this man is very nice and I'm very strong, I have, but you never know. Slowly, it creeps into your character. These three elements, we have to take care of them. So if you can't find and safeguard these three elements, now you put him, wherever you put him, in any country, your son is going to be, or your child is going to be safe. But if these three elements are missing, or they are not in the right order, and you don't know good school, bad TV programs, bad friends, even if you put him in the most religious society and country and city, your son, your daughter is going to be corrupted. So we have to consider these three elements.
Inshallah. It's interesting you mentioned friends, because of course the older children get, the less, arguably the less influence parents have over that child, especially once he starts reaching his teens and becomes an adolescent or reaches the age of adolescence. But with regards to peer pressure, I remember speaking to some youths, and this has happened on not just one occasion, a number of occasions, from the Muslim communities. And something I found quite surprising was that, I've heard this a couple of times at least now, that the peer pressure, negative peer pressure, tends to come from older Muslims, maybe in their school, for example, rather than the non-Muslims. Why? Because they say the non-Muslims recognize that they're Muslims, they don't drink, you know, they don't do some of the stuff that maybe they do, so they don't offer it to them. Whereas they say they see Muslims, maybe 2, 3 years older, who are smoking, for example, and they think, well, he's a Muslim like me, he believes in the same religion as I do, and if he's smoking, then it must be okay for me to smoke, and felt that that has pushed them or caused them to incline towards doing these bad things, not their non-Muslim friends.
That's true, because again, another example of that is when I spoke to certain Muslim girls in the West, in America, who used to observe hijab until the age of university, and they went to university and they threw the hijab away. When I asked them, I realized that they were influenced by their Muslim friends who chose not to wear the hijab, not by the non-Muslim friends, because anyways, non-Muslims, they don't observe the hijab. But there was a Muslim girl with her, her friend, classmate, who said to her, listen, we live in America, different society, you're going to curtail your freedom, you know, people are going to disrespect you. If you graduate, you are not going to get the good job because of your hijab. As long as you pray, you have good heart, good intention. And she listened to her. Maybe if a non-Muslim would tell her the same, she would not buy it from her. Sure. Because she told her, well, she would tell her that you have a different culture, different religion, you know. But when it comes from someone who's from the same race, same culture, same religion, it will be more influencing and more effective. And yes, true, the peer pressure, whether we are not talking about non-Muslim, you know, influence. Sure. Sometimes we forewarn the parents and the young ones from the negative influence of some of their cousins, could be. Not necessarily only in the American school or British school or Canadian. Sometimes I forewarn the young generation from the bad people in the Islamic Center, who attend the Islamic Center, who attend lectures and prayers, but they don't behave themselves according to the Islamic principles. So the bad is found everywhere, and the good is also found everywhere. I've seen some non-Muslim families who have some good level of discipline for their kids. They don't drink, they don't do drugs, they don't smoke, they don't, you know, stay late outside the house. They have some good discipline, although they don't follow the Islamic faith. They follow their own faith. Nowadays, we don't see, hundreds of years ago, they divided the world into two camps, Biladul Kufr and Biladul Islam. Nowadays, we don't have, everywhere could be, every society could be the country of faith or the country of disbelief. Sure. Every society. So we have to be very careful when we speak about others. Sometimes the bad influence comes from within our own communities.
Sure. Okay, now in terms of our role as parents, of course, our children are our responsibility. We are supposed to give them the background that will enable them to progress spiritually as they get older themselves. But how much of a role can we realistically have the older they get? So a child reaches puberty, 14, 15, in these teenage years, you know, the change in hormones, all of these outside pressures. And in some households, not all of course, but in some of our households, we see that there becomes this friction. Oh, mum, dad, you don't understand me, you don't understand what I'm going through, you're from a foreign country, you know, you don't speak my language.
Generation gap.
Yes, exactly, and sometimes a cultural gap as well. Can the parents still, and it becomes harder for them to actually impose, so you can say, right, you have to be at home at a certain time, but unfortunately in some households the children...
They should not impose. We should not even think of imposing things on our children. First of all, the responsibility, to answer your question, of the parents towards their children never ceases. Even past the age of 30 and 40 and 50. your father, your mother, my father and my mother, we need them, we need their advice, we need their experience, even if we have children, and in my case, grandchildren too. I still need my father to talk to me and my mother. I still need them. So there is no certain age where I say, now, from today, no more parents' guidance or parents' advice. This is number one. Number two, the best method of approaching our children and influencing them and teaching them is friendship, is to be close to them, that they respect you. Even if they disagree with you, it would not lead into a rebellion in the family. Even if they even if they disagree with you, they come to you and they negotiate this with you. They try to find a settlement here. They discuss this issue with you thoroughly. And through discussion, you may reach a solution. Because sometimes what the parents are saying is right, and sometimes what the children are saying is right. We are not saying every word uttered by the father is correct and every word uttered by his children is incorrect. We don't say this. This is arrogance and this is bigotry. Sometimes parents say wrong things and they have wrong opinion and wrong ideas and wrong solutions. Sometimes their children, they know better. And sometimes it's the opposite. It is solved through negotiation. الرحمن علم الإنسان الرحمن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان. علمه البيان. God has given us the faculty of expressing ourselves through intelligence. So we have to utilize this. We have to sit together and speak about it without emotions being involved from neither side. We sit, whether it is something related to studies and universities, moving out of the family, marriage, any other issue. We need to sit and discuss this in a spirit of openness and respect for each side, because sometimes the parents, they put their kids down. Oh, you don't understand, you are still, baby, you have no experience. I'm much older than you, I have traveled here and there. And sometimes the kids, they put their parents down. Listen, I'm a graduate of this, you just came from that village, you were illiterate, you did not, we studied here in the West, I have master's degree, I have this. We should put these things aside. These are emotions and arrogance. They should sit together and discuss it, and through understanding and tafahum, through understanding, they should reach a solution. Sometimes they don't reach a solution, so they have to seek outside help and assistance. There are many wise people out, sometimes within the same family, sometimes in the community. They go to that wise person, be it a male or female, a scholar, a social worker, social leader, religious leader, whatever. University professor, someone, a consultant, an advisor, a therapist. They go to him or to her and they present their case and see what other people tell them. So I disagree forcefully with the idea of imposing on our children things that they don't understand and they don't appreciate. The family institution is not a military institution. In the military institution, in the army, in the navy, in the air force, you must do this. You don't argue with your commander. You never argue. After you accomplish the mission and you come back, you may ask him, why did we do this? But not before. In the family, it's exactly the opposite. We have to say why. It's okay for our children to ask me, Daddy, why we are saying this or doing this or going there, or, why? And it's my responsibility as a father. I'm not just a breadwinner. I'm a teacher too. I'm a guide. My kids, they ask me all sorts of questions. I have to answer them. I cannot say, listen, this is off limit. You don't get it, you don't understand. I have to use a language that they understand. Because if they don't get it from me, they're going to get it from where? From someone else. And maybe that someone is going to teach them the wrong thing. So we are educators and teachers, and we should have tolerance, and we should put up with our children's, inquiries and questions and discussions and arguments and sometimes rejections, because this is the only way. Sure. I don't find any other way. Otherwise, we're going to get into conflict and fights, and then we lose our children. And if we lose our children, we're going to lose ourselves too. قُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ وَأَهْلِيكُمْ نَارًا وَقُودُهَا النَّاسُ وَالْحِجَارَةُ. Protect yourselves and your family members.
Okay, tell me, I know you have stated in the past that hitting children is wrong, but are there some circumstances, maybe when they're a bit younger, are there extreme circumstances when maybe the child has done something really wrong, or as a way of protecting them, maybe they wanted to run? I don't want to give you a scenario because that would be wrong, but are there some circumstances where it would be acceptable for a parent to hit his or her child?
We learn from our leaders, and our leaders, we as Muslims, is Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his household, Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. We never read in the history of the Prophet and his descendants and his family members, the Imams, not even a single incident where they smacked a child or they physically disciplined a child. They never did that. Not because they were unable, physically. They were able. Some of them were good fighters, Amir al-Mu'mineen was a hero. But inside the house, he had a different personality. Raising Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein, Lady Zainab, Lady Kulthum, dealing with the most honorable Lady Fatima al-Zahra, he was the nicest, the most lenient, the best friend, the most compassionate father and husband. They never used that. And I don't think we need to use that. Because if we have other options, why do we go to this worst option? We may threaten them. Some of the scholars and educators, they say, threaten him that, listen, you would lose this benefit. The benefit that I'm going to give you, or I'm giving you already, you are going to lose it. You're going to be deprived from this. I'm not going to take you next time when we go to, let's say, Disneyland, let's say. You are not going to be with us. You may threaten them, but never use physical discipline. Never use. Because physical discipline, in 99% of the cases, brings bad results, not good results. Actually, in one of the incidents we read that the Prophet came to the house of Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, and he carried Imam Hussein. While he carried Imam Hussein was wet, So this nurse, al-Fadl, she was so embarrassed. She pulled Imam Hussein. She pulled him with force. So the Imam, he was a few months old. He started to cry. The Prophet said to her, don't do that. Because this, I can clean it with water. But what you created in his heart cannot be cleaned. This is a lesson for us. It really leaves deep marks on the personality, the hearts, the soul of the children. They would never forget that. I can tell you now, some people, they get to their 40s and 50s and 60s, and they remember one single incident where their mother, their father, their grandfather, he hit them one day. They remember it, they still remember it. So let's not do that. Let's really stop that altogether. We may discipline them in other ways by depriving them. Time out. You cannot enjoy this ice cream today. You cannot enjoy this candy today. You can't enjoy this video game today for 3 days, let's say, because you did. This is more effective. This is a better way of bringing discipline into the family life.
Sayed Mustafa Qazwini, thank you very much indeed. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. We could have carried on for a lot longer. Of course, there are many other points, but of course, I hope and I'm sure that you have received a lot of knowledge today, and hopefully parts of it, or if not all of it, you can implement into your own family life, inshallah. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you again soon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.